welcome to Creator Toolbox. This is the show where we explore ServiceNow tools that developers can use to make development easier for you. Before we get into anything, let's start with some introductions. Chuck.
Hey, my name is Chuck Tomasi, Senior Developer Advocate at ServiceNow. Been here since 2010, was a customer for a couple of years before that, and a lot of history across a lot of topics in IT going back into the early 80s. It is my pleasure to be here. My specialty is in creating custom applications and integrations and just general platform topics. So I love this show to bring you the tools you need to be an effective developer. Brad, who are you?
All right. Thanks, Chuck. My name is Brad Tilton. I'm a developer advocate with a developer program here at ServiceNow. I have been developing on the platform since 2008, and my specialty is also doing custom app development, as well as kind of front-end development across a few of our tools over the years. Excited about today's show, where we're going to get into some Flow Designer and some inline scripting and Flow Designer. So without any further ado, I'll turn it over to Chuck and tell us about what we're doing today.
Yeah, you bet. You mentioned some scripting in Flow Designer, and a lot of us think of Flow Designer as a no-code solution, but there are places in there where you can inject some code for those specific needs. Or, as we'll show you, you can create your own actions to make repurposable routines, if you like, to run that over and over. It's just, I'll tell you, I have really gravitated towards Flow Designer, and then as a way to build those subroutines, as actions, as subflows, as flows. This is a really creative way, a really fast way to do this and debug it. I had to go into some code that I wrote a year or so ago this weekend, rather deep JavaScript, and it was tough to remind myself of what the logic was. Why did I do this? What are the APIs? What are the function names? What parameters do they take? The scripting is just going to be a little harder. And if you have the choice anytime between doing something in script, maybe it's just looking up records, or doing it in Flow or any other no-code solution, always look at the no-code or the low-code solution first. You'll thank me later. I especially all you old crusty people like me that have been doing code for decades. It's like, yeah, but I could just crank out a script to do that. No, trust me, look at the low-code stuff, because you'll hate yourself later when you go, what was I thinking here? And then they shuffle the deck and go, no, glide query will do this easier than glide record. Now your scripting brain just goes into this frenzy. So we don't want to mess with you too much. What I've got today is a simple parts management, parts order system. So I've got an order table and line items. I'll show you that in just a second on the screen share. But we're going to do some automation of calculating some values. Very typical thing what you do. Price times quantity equals amount on each line item, rather than having somebody sum that up. Yes, you could do this in a business rule. Yes, you could do this as a calculated field, but I want to show you these capabilities in Flow Designer, and I think you'll enjoy them. They practically write themselves. I did this on Build with Chuck during CreatorCon, and there was one point where I had to inject a little bit of calculation into a field. And I mean, it was like, hit the dot, hit the tab, hit the dot, hit the tab, hit the dot, hit the tab. Like, okay, I just wrote script. It's like, well, I'll show you that in a second. It's real fun. So instead of promising, let's deliver. Let me do a quick screen share and
all right,
find my screen. I'll give you a count in when I'm ready to hit that screen share button. Screen share in 3, 2, 1. And hit the share. There we are. So, as I mentioned, we've got our simple order. I've got a couple of outstanding orders here in my parts management. I've got orders, and each order, as I mentioned, has line items. So I've got 325 12-centimeter LED panels for $1.25, but there's no amount. And you can also see that this amount field is editable. Probably not something you want to do. You want that to leave that as calculated. And then I've got a total order amount up here. Now, yes, I can use the list controls on a lot of these lists. If you haven't looked at this before, I encourage you to configure a list and go to list control. And, oh, I'm sorry, list calculation. Totally messed that up. So under the amount, I say configure list calculations. And up comes this nice little modal that says, what do you want? You want the total value, minimum, maximum, or average. And you just check these off. And what it does is puts a nice little sum at the bottom of that amount field. And you could do this for any of the fields that have some sort of numeric value with them. You could, I don't know if you can sum up like a reference field, what happens there, but we're not going to go there today. So I've got my line items. And this is one of the interesting situations where I put the line item number at the end. Don't ask me why. It just didn't work when doing an embedded list, just from a user experience standpoint. You want to enter quantity, description, price very fast. Boom, 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 next. Boom, 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 next. Having the number in that first field is just not helpful to the data entry piece. So talk to your users about how they use the system, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. Let's get into what we were going to get. First thing I want to do is sum these up. So let's first make the amount field read only. I don't want humans touching that. It's a calculated value. Deal with it. So to do that, I'm going to create a flow. And I'm going to do that, of course, with Flow Designer. So let's go to Flow Designer by typing Flow Designer up here. And I have a shortcut, and under Process Automation is one also. Up comes Flow Designer. Let me remember to zoom out on that so I remember later. And I will create a new flow. And we'll give this a name like line amount changed. Application list is loading, loading, loading.
Dirk says the sum of a reference field is a list field. I like that. That's true.
Could be. Might have something there. Okay, first time in Flow Designer. I'm going to skip the tour and don't bother with me again. This is my PDI. I purposely set that for another demo to say, look, Flow Designer is very useful. If you've never been in here, you can take a tour of it and learn how it runs. I'm not going to give you a complete overview. We have other videos on that. So first thing I want to do is add my trigger. And I'm going to say, whenever a line item record is created or updated, because I want new records and changed records to reflect this. Let's get this out of the line table. Of course, there are a million things that say line in them, so I'm going to cheat and look by scope first. 66238, parts, line, and parts order. There's my line item table. And I don't need every change. If somebody changes the description, I don't need to recalculate the amount. So let's add a filter on here. Very easy to do. If the quantity changes or the price changes. That's the only time I really want to update that. So change that.
Are those fields mandatory?
They
Should we add a not empty check? All right.
They are, if I remember right. Let me drill into one of those. Yes, quantity and price are mandatory. What happens if you enter something here and you don't, and you add a new row without one? Nothing here. I've never done this on an embedded list, so will it save that? Oh, ouch. Mandatory. That's dictionary level mandatory now. Okay, so embedded list may not be the best thing here. All right, I'm not going to get into that right now. We're here to fix a different problem. But yeah, you're right. We probably should do a not empty check. So, but it's multiplication rather than division. If you were doing division, you don't want to divide by 0. And also important, run the trigger for each unique change or for every update. I haven't figured out what the difference between these two is yet. Do you know, Brad?
That's a great question. I don't. Does unique change assume that a field changed maybe? I don't know.
Or if you change 2 fields, is that 2 unique changes and it runs the flow twice?
Good question.
I don't know. We're going to need somebody to give us an answer on that. It just, bad description in my opinion. So I've usually taken for each update and no problems. Okay, that's our trigger. I'm going to save. Save early, save often. There's 2 types of people in this world, those who have lost data and those who are about to. Next, we just want to update the record. So if the price or quantity changes, let's update the record. Easy action under core, update record. Ding. Which record are we updating? We're going to update that same line item record that we just got. We're just going across each of those line items, and I'm going to set the amount field. And here's where I got fooled the first couple of times. Because I said, could I set that to the amount field here? And recently, I think it was Orlando? Paris, maybe? It might have been Orlando. We got this data pill functions. And if you click that, I'm zoomed in a little bit, so let me back off. You can see there are some mathematical functions, but none of these really works for me. The sum takes an array of numbers. I don't have an array of numbers. I'm not sure how I would generate an array of numbers out of those data pills. So unfortunately, we're not there yet. Get rid of the data pill. What I'm after is this little box right here that says toggle scripting on amount. Okay? And it brings up this nice little template for me of script. And what I want is almost exactly what's in this description. Only I'm going to call it a local variable called amount. And I access the data pills through this FD data object. It says right there, flow action data using FD data object. So FD data dot, well, there's only one thing, trigger. I could type it or I could hit tab. This is where I said it practically writes itself. Dot, I want the current. There's a few other things that I could get at, but I really don't care when the run start time was. Current dot, and I want the quantity times is done with an asterisk. If you need a little JavaScript help, we have a whole JavaScript series on that. And then multiply that by FD data dot trigger dot current dot, oops, I spelled current wrong. That's why I usually let it type for me, times price.
And price.
So quantity times price is amount. I think we all learned that back in, well, whatever grade you were in when you learned that. And I must return the amount. If you don't return it, it says right here, script must return a value. Otherwise, what good is it? You're doing these happy calculations and away it goes. Now, also very important is the temptation is to hit the script box. Don't do that, or you will get no value. This will do exactly what it says. In the amount field, put nothing. I open that back up, hit the collapse, and then it says scripted. If it doesn't say scripted, you're not getting the value from the script. I have made that mistake more than once. It's kind of like doing a glide record lookup without a query. You're just mad at yourself at that point.
Yeah, so many times I hit that button.
I know, and you think it's there, but you don't check to see that it says scripted. Let's go get a line item record to practice on. 1001 looks good. So let's do a test. I forgot to save, but that's okay. We'll get there in a sec. Test on 1001, run the test. I'm not sure what this little pop over is. The tooltip hint thing is kind of interesting. Your test is finished. Let's go look at the results. I opened up, let's make sure it's the right record. 325 times $1.25 or £1.25 or whatever currency you want to imagine that is good. Oh, other thing that I found out, data types on those fields right now is floating point. I have tried this with decimal, and for whatever reason, Flow Designer does not like decimal. So I haven't figured out why or what the difference is, but floating point, there's my tip of the day. Let's go into here, and it says amount, which was calculated, 406.25, got saved in there, the record was updated, and the output, ta-da, the amount is in there. You know what I didn't do? I didn't make that field read-only. We should do that real quick, because we don't want humans messing with this. So many ways you can make a field read-only, with ACLs, with the dictionary, with data policies, UI policies, you decide. I am going to go into the dictionary for this example and simply click the read-only field. Click. No, not delete column. That'd be the end of that demo. Okay. The other one I want to make read-only is this order amount up here. No human, no touchy. No touchy. Read-only. And good. Okay, so we've got this running. I'm fairly confident that that's going to work. Let's go ahead and cancel. Save. And don't forget to activate. I forgot to do that a few times too. Activate says, put this in production, not production, but make it run. Make it actually trigger when it's supposed to trigger. Watch for that trigger. That's especially annoying on those scheduled ones where you go 2 days later, why isn't my flow running? Oh, I never activated it. And you can tell real easy if it's activated or not from this list on the home. It will say published or draft. If it's in draft, you haven't published. Now, the trickier ones are the ones that you come back and re-edit it, and you will have both of those lit up. It'll say deactivate and activate. I'm like, what? And publish? Wait, where am I in this? So always look over here at this little pill. If you're curious as to what state is my flow in right now. It's not like the old workflow where you checked it out, you worked on a copy, and you checked it back in. Okay, that's done, I think. Now, this isn't real-time update, so if I change this from 54 to 50, and I do a save, it's not going to work in real time. This is just something you're going to have to deal with for this example. You can make this run synchronously and wait, or other methods if you really need that. But remember, embedded lists are not exactly like related lists. The data I enter in here, think of it as like a multi-row variable set. It's not saved until I save this record, which is probably why that mandatory field didn't work. But the read-only field works. Can't touch that. Oh, suddenly I want to play MC Hammer. Okay.
So Andrew answered our every update versus unique value
yes.
In the chat, which of course Andrew's watching. He can't really leave us.
Nobody's scheduled a Tuesday morning meeting for him yet.
But it makes sense. So every update runs just every time the conditions are matched. The unique value runs anytime the form has a unique set of values. So if you change it to something and then you change it back to the previous thing, then it doesn't run for unique values because it's already run against that. So for our purposes here, we want it to run on every update, just in case, you change the quantity to 4 and then it changes back to 1 and then it changes back to 4. You would want it to run every time, no matter whether that value combination has happened before.
So it keeps a history of that stuff somewhere?
I guess so.
Interesting. Okay. Interesting. Which, might make sense for, I don't know, redoing an approval or something. Have I sent this person an announcement or an email or, okay. I could see that being useful. Okay. Next step. We've got our line item calculations done, and all I would have to do is change either one of these to get this, or you go and write a flow to manually update, or to go through and update them once and say, hey, recalculate all the amounts. I trust that flow is working. Let's go on to the next one. I want to roll these all up. Actually, you know what? I want some actual amounts because I want to take this sum at the bottom. Remember I showed you the list calculation before? Let's do this one. Hey, look, the price on LS2 clamps, or L52 clamps, has been reduced. They are now a low price of $12.50. And
I don't think prices do that. I think they always go up, right?
Okay, well, the sticky stuff is going to go up to 10. There. I don't know what the sticky stuff is. My other order has a 25 snacks on it. Demo data. We've all had to make it, and I run out of imagination fast. Okay, so my grand total for all of this is $1912.75. I want that up here because often when you're reporting, you just want to get at the field on the order. Like, hey, show me my open orders and how much stuff is in the pipeline and, businessy stuff that most businessy people want. So I'm going to write not a flow, but a custom action that I will put on the flow. So anytime one of these changes, it will trigger that record to be updated. So let's go back to Flow Designer, and I can either do new action here, or if I had another tab, I could open it up with the little plusy thing. So let's call this calculate line item total. You mean the parts application? I don't need a category.
I think total is misspelled, but I kind of like that spelling.
Total. Must have been spelling the name of my cat or something. And I am going to take one input, and that will be a reference to the order, since this is specific to the order parts order library thing. So let's call this order. And it's going to be a reference. Click through the arrow, find your table, line, darn it. I have to use the long list. Line, there it is. And that should be mandatory. Okay, actions are repurposable components. We used an action in the last flow called update record. All you do is plug in fields. So I want my users, when they get this, to just say, give me an order, I'll figure out the rest. You say you need the total recalculated, let's do that. Next thing, I'm going to script this. Ooh, don't be freaked out. Come on, I click the plus. Oh,
there we go.
No,
Wait.
Somehow I accidentally clicked on wait for condition. What happens when you click the wrong thing? You click the X and make it go away. I must have just had some crazy lag in there. So I want down here, utilities, script. Now I have to pass this action input item into the script so it knows what to do with it. It does not have instant access to all of your action inputs. So I'm going to call this order rec, and the value is going to come from that data pill. I could also use this handy dandy data pill picker value here, but it was right at the top level. So now I mentioned glide query earlier. What do you say we take our chances with that?
Ooh, I like it.
Okay, new global dot glide query. Don't forget to put the global in there. On the X6238 parts order, no, parts line. I want to find all of the line item records that are related to the order I passed in. Okay, so I need dot where order is the same as inputs dot order rec dot sysid. Unfortunately, it does not give you the sysid by default, so we're going to have to do dot walking. That could get turned up as a bad practice somewhere. I want to sum the amount, all of the amounts of the line items, and I haven't used this one too much yet, or else 0. This is right out of the docs, by the way. I pretty much copy and pasted and put in my own where. And so outputs.amount equals whatever came out of that glide query. I'm trying to teach myself glide query whenever an opportunity comes up. Yes, I could have done that with a glide aggregate. I'll call this one amount because that aligns with outputs amount. So this is my outputs, call it amount. It's going to be a loading point number. That is the script step output. Calculate order amount. You can rename your actions in case you have a whole stack of these, especially when you're picking data pills. Did we hit a limit or is that a display? Okay, that's a display thing. And now
this is the step I always forget. Like I already created an output.
Yeah, I've missed this one a lot too. Don't forget, there's a scope to these variables. One is the script steps input and output. then I need to pass that script output to the action, because each one of these steps can have its own little private set of inputs and outputs. Much like a flow, the actions themselves have inputs and outputs. Well, and oftentimes, I think Andrew taught me this, and I didn't do it today, is create your action inputs and outputs first. Then you're less likely to forget them.
I don't know. When I do that, then I forget to do the output on the action itself, and I just try to write to the or on the step itself. I always try to write to the actions output.
So let's call this sum. The name will be sum, and this is going to be a floating point also. I want everything to match, and then I say exit edit mode. I'm done defining this and a dictionary of outputs, and now I need to put the values in there. And the value I want is from the script step amount. Drag, drop, done.
We take another look at your script.
Yes?
Somebody in the chat thinks we may have misspelled something. Outputs, that is right. It needs another T.
Thank you.
There we go.
Sober
Thanks,
people.
Ed.
Give Ed a +1. Thank you. Yes, those are the kinds of things that scripting will get you in trouble. That's why scripting takes longer. Ask me about my Memorial Day weekend. Okay, I saved it, but I did not publish it yet. Let's test it. I have order number 1001, and I should get 1912 out of this thing when I test it. So let's go test, mandatory order record. Why is it asking for line item numbers? Did I point to the wrong table? I did. I pointed reference to line. This should be reference to order. That's not right. Oh, reference. Try that again. Reference. Order. I asked for an order, but I accepted line items. That's why testing is really helpful. Really, really helpful. Okay, save that again. Hope it didn't mess up any data pills or anything later. There we are. Number field prefixes are your friend. Press the order. Let's go see what it did. Output value of
that looks right.
Full action was 1912.75. And you can go into the steps as well to see what those inputs and outputs were. Ours was pretty simple. The step inputs and outputs were exactly the same as the action inputs and output because it really only did one thing. But I wrote effectively, what was that? One line of code? Two if you count the output statement. This is all one statement. And that's two. So I'm still classifying this as low code. It's good. Publish. Let's put that on our massive magic flow. Do that. And go back and open our flow. I don't know why I closed it. Flow, line amount change. So when the line amount change, if somebody updates a price or a quantity, we need to not only calculate that line item, but we also need to redo our order record total. So underneath action, I should see parts in here somewhere. Woohoo, parts. Calculate line item total. Probably be calculate order total, but that's okay. There's my input. Pick a record. Well, uh-oh. I have a line record, but I don't have an order record.
You just dot walk to it, right?
You can just dot walk to it, right, because there's a reference in here. Now, you could have gone two ways on that. You could have accepted the line item record, but my action would then have to get all the sibling records. So it would have used, I would have dot walked in the script. That's the only difference. So which way do you want to slice this? Do you want to make the person making the flow dot walk to the order? Or do you want to make the, I kind of like this because it's a little more generic. You could go and create a calculation on a totally different record.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you could trigger this from other places too. So if this was a subflow, you could call it from when the line item changed, or if you want to have a button on the order record that
just recalculate.
Recalculate things.
So, did I test it? I didn't test it. Let's test it. I should save it first. Save is lit up. It's a good indicator. If it's lit up, you better save. And we will test this again with, now we're not actually changing a price or quantity, but when you test a flow, it skips the trigger. It assumes you made that change. So it's going to pretend we made a change to 1001. We then get, ooh, the action's completed. Let's take a look at our results. Output of this action was 1912.75. Oh, I can hardly wait. You have to do a refresh, reload form. Oh, guess what I didn't do? I didn't
Oh, we didn't use it.
I didn't know you didn't reload the order record. That happens all the time too. I'm glad we do this live. So next thing we do, now that we've calculated this useful number, let's actually put it to use. One more action. And I like to go here whenever I can too. Most recent, update record. I like using most recent, and I like doing the copy action too, or the duplicate action. That is just, sometimes I find myself not using it or going, why are you doing this the hard way, stupid? Okay, the record I need to update. This time let's go this way. Trigger, line, order. Ooh, that's fun. And the field is going to be the amount field. It was called order amount, right? Let's look at the order record. Order amount. Yes, good. I think in one of the earlier incantations I had, this is just called amount. I went, I don't know if I'm on the right table or not. So name your fields accordingly. Obviously, you wouldn't want every field on your order record to say order description, order amount, order customer. And what do I want out of there? I want the calculated sum. Done, save, test. Let's do a test. You're seeing it exactly how we do this every time. It's like, doggone it, I forgot that again. I'm glad we're making some mistakes. This is not a well-polished demo. We're somewhere between tech now professionalism and live coding happy hour improv. Test those results. This time, did we get the right amount? 1912.75. Did we update the order record with 1912.75? Order amount, 1912.75. We should be able to go over here and see the little heartbeat icon that says, Chuck modified this, and there's our order amount. Hey, this is pretty cool. I say both of these are ready to publish. Oh, I already published this one. So action is published. Flow is now updated and ready to activate. And we have done what we set out to do. Any comments from the chat?
Yeah, we did have a question about ordering, which I am about to paste in a link to a good Docs article that shows where...
That is a great question. What happens first? Business rules with an order or less than 999 or a flow? That's one way to find out. Now flows, if I remember right, if you look in the properties, it will run... They run synchronously or asynchronously? I thought there was a thing in here that says run in background or run in foreground in the property.
I think it can do both, right?
Oh, that's my action anyway. No, that's the flow. Properties.
By default, they'll run.
If you run it through the API, you can choose. But if you run it through the trigger, which way do they run? I mean, if you just let it run, is it async? We used to have a property in the flow.
I think the flows, so if you look at that article, it's actually, that article is really great because it goes through just about anything that can run on something happening in the database. And the flows run after
in the trigger, it says, Andrew,
less than 1,000, and then after business rules greater than 1,000, run after the flows.
There it is. By default, It's going to run in the background. Thank you, Andrew. Does he have a job yet? Is he just here to pick on us?
He's being helpful.
Yeah, he's proving we can't do without him. We're doomed, Brad. We're doomed. Oh, it's called getting old too. I can't remember where these options moved. In the trigger, so we could run, for any user, we can make it. We can run as in the properties. We could run as the system, or we could run as the user who initiates it. So consider that around your ACLs too. I'm getting into a flow designer lesson again, but there it is. When to run. So it's going to run in the background, which you got to consider if you've got a before business rule or an after business rule. Those are going to run before an async flow. And if you are running a flow, just like running business rules, and somebody hits save, you better know which business rules and which flows are being triggered synchronously, because the user will have to wait for all of that logic processing to happen, which is kind of why we default these to happen in the background. As I mentioned, you can put it in a script API. So now that we've got this done, we could say, copy my code snippet. Copy flow, copy connections. Where'd it go?
You only get that on a subflow? Oh, no, there it is. Create code snippet. You have to save it.
Maybe. It's got an unsaved save. Not sure what I did save. I just opened up the trigger. Copy code snippet is not available for me. Oh, activate. I don't know if I ever activated after our last activate. I probably just injected a new bug because I was clicking and not paying attention. Once it's activated, then you can copy the code snippet. Same with flows, same with actions. So copy code snippet, and then in here, you will see it says, if you want to start asynchronously, you run this part, and the key differentiator is, scroll with me, bud. There it is. In background is called, or in foreground, as part of this string of API stuff. So that's really the major difference between those two. And away we go. So we could, like you said, put that on a UI action if we wanted to refresh the total. Just click it, it'll happen. That's all I've got.
All right.
Any more questions? Oh, Andrew's still on vacation, and this is what he watches instead of Netflix. That's what real developers do. So we showed you how you can put a little bit of low code into a record definition or a field definition. It says, look, get the amount to calculate price times quantity. Very common thing you might want to do for each of those line items. And of course, you could sum up the line items with a custom action. You could, conceivably, I haven't tried this yet, but you could do a lookup records and then use a flow variable to contain a title. I haven't figured out if that's working or not yet. It wasn't in one of the early access releases of flow variables. So it's time to go back and check. We're up to Quebec patch 2 is in the wild?
It may be 3.
Maybe 3, early June of 2021, if you're watching this later. So thank you, everybody who joined us. Thank you for all the wonderful comments. Great discussion. And that is a little bit about how you can do scripting in Flow. Do we have any announcements, Brad?
Yeah, so we took the month of May off from this show, and I think we only did the one Knowledge Live Coding Happy Hour because of Knowledge and CreatorCon. We're back weekly with Creator Toolbox. That'll be the same time every Tuesday morning for us, afternoon for others around the world. And then a change for this summer, or the months of June, July,
there you
August.
Go. Upside down Andrew would have hung you by the toenails.
We're going to be doing a live coding happy hour on Thursday afternoons, an hour later than we normally do them on Fridays for us. So we will be doing that Tuesday mornings and Thursday afternoons for AMS and adjust accordingly to your time zones. But we'll be publishing those schedules. Just stay tuned for what we publish on the YouTube channel.
We'll socialize that too. Typically, I'll socialize a day before. So tomorrow you should see a live coding happy hour announcement go out. Do we have a topic for this week, just as a teaser? What's the live code topic this week?
We do. We are going to have one of our developer MVPs on, and we're going to talk about instant scan and doing, I think we're going to maybe create a spoke, an instant scan spoke to do some additional things that the current spokes don't do. So it should be good.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Would that MVP be Mark?
I believe it is Mark. Yeah.
He's the first name that comes to mind when it comes to instant scan. So the man is working on his brand identity.
Hopefully he remembers from when we talked about it last week. I think he's on.
We'll be in touch. We're also working on a topic for next week. That's going to be fun. We're going to go back to Service Portal if everything works out here. As I was working on something this weekend and I went, hey, I want to do this, but I have no idea how. So we're calling in some specialists now. If you want to be part of either of these shows, Creator Toolbox or Live Code, let us know. Reach out. Looking for your help on topics. If you've implemented something and said, that's interesting, that's worth sharing, run it by us. We'll let you know if there's a slot, and if things work out, you could find yourself doing a show. That'd be fun.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you very much, Brad, for taking care of the technical details. And we will talk to you again real soon, if not sooner. Oh, got to play the music. There it is. See you later.